Fantasy freaks and geeks, what's going on? James Coe here with you. As we go into this, all right, 3, 2, and 1. Fantasy freaks and geeks, what's going on? James Coe here with you. You're listening to this on a Friday. Yesterday, we covered running backs and quarterback sleepers. Today, we are hitting you with some wide receiver and some tight end sleepers as well. Although I have to say, yet again, not a lot of tight end sleepers out there, man. Not a lot of tight end sleepers, but we'll get to it when we get to it. And I do got one that I really like and a player that I think should be widely available. So we'll get to that guy. But let's start the wide receiver position. Yesterday we talked about how we like Bo Nix against Baltimore. Baltimore's really been struggling against the pass. So if we like Bo Nix, that means we like Courtland Sutton as well. The Ravens have been getting smacked around through the air this year. All right. They've allowed the most fantasy points per game to outside wide receivers this year. In fact, they've allowed 4 different outside wide receivers to score 22 plus PPR points. Over the last 4 weeks, this same cast of characters has given up 2 touchdown performances to Cedric Tillman, Terry McLaurin, and Jamar Chase. All right. And if we're keeping track here, Mike Evans probably would have gotten 2 touchdowns if he didn't have a bad wheel, right? He was well on his way to a 2-touchdown, 20-point performance. But again, had that hamstring injury. He played about a quarter and a half, but he had already caught a touchdown and had 9.5 points after just a quarter and a half of play. I mean, it's fair to assume that he would have gotten at least 15. So another outside wide receiver would have probably had another big day against this Baltimore Ravens defense. Now, I get that Sutton has been extremely volatile. All you got to do is look at his last 2 weeks. 2 weeks ago, this dude put up a 0 spot, a literal 0. I don't think he was targeted in that game. And then last week, it was the best game of the year for him. 11 targets, 8 grabs, and 100 yards. His only and first 100-yard game of the season. So he's coming off of a strong performance here. I wonder if Bo Nix and Sean Payton realize, like, hey, man, we do have to get this guy activated, and we've got to get him going. Now, will they do that against the Ravens? Because the Ravens, hey, listen, they've got Deontay Johnson now, man. They're absolutely going to be putting points up on the board. So I think Denver will be trailing, which, again, encourages a pretty high passing volume game script, right? So they've been susceptible to the pass. They're probably going to be in a pass-forward situation. I like Bo Nix, and I like Courtland Sutton here as well. All right, let's talk about Tyler Lockett taking on the Rams. LA's outside corners have been, they have not been good, man. They have been getting routinely beaten, and the Rams have given up the 6th most fantasy points per game to outside wide receivers. Now, Lockett did disappoint last week against Buffalo. I get it. 3 targets, just 1 grab for 9 yards. That is not good. Ladies and gentlemen, that is not good. But that was against Buffalo. This week it's against the Rams. Much, much better matchup. And I will say this too. Lockett did lead the team in routes run. So you're talking about pretty good baseline volume here in terms of on the field. He's on the field a lot. He's running a lot of routes. And a considerably softer matchup this week, obviously, against the Rams. I just think that Tyler Lockett, even at this advanced age, I think we're going to see a really nice bounce-back week for the veteran in Tyler Lockett. All right, you want to talk about another veteran. How about Keenan Allen taking on Arizona? I like this matchup a lot. The Cardinals their pass defense has been very up and down. Let's just put it that way. But overall, they have given up the 4th most fantasy points per game to receivers in the slot this year, including the 5th most yards. Now, Keenan Allen obviously has been very up and down, volatile player because of the competition for targets there. But I do think in this particular game, he'll be available, and they'll get those chains moving here with Keenan Allen. So I like Keenan Allen in this matchup, again, against Arizona. All right, let's talk about Jordan Addison against the Colts. I kind of like Jordan Addison against the Colts, and I'm going to go with this squeaky wheel theory here. Now, if you're not up to date on the drama, Addison posted a, quote, free 3 on Instagram on his picture, right, with the caption free 3. Now, this, after a disappointing 3-target, 2-reception game for just 22 yards. Statistically, he's been a huge bust. I mean, there's just no getting around it. He's had one good game. That's it. As a matter of fact, he's only had one game of 70-plus yards and 0 games with more than 3 catches. 0. He has no catches with 4 or more receptions. That's insane. For a player of this caliber, come on, bro. Now, again, as users pointed out, Free 3 is a nickname for Jordan Addison. He's got a chain that says Free 3 on it. Okay, I get it. And Jordan Addison said, no. There's nothing to it. That's my nickname. And okay, listen. Listen. You know exactly what you are doing when you post Free 3 after having back-to-back underwhelming performances, after you have been a huge statistical bust this year, after the team is coming off of back-to-back losses. They're coming off of back-to-back losses. You've done absolutely nothing in 3 straight games. You've again been a huge disappointment statistically. And then you post Free 3. Listen, man, you could say whatever you want, bro, but you know exactly what you are doing when you post that. All right. Now, again, he has not been highly targeted this season. I just think that changes this week in a really good matchup. The Colts have allowed the 5th most receptions and the 4th most yards to outside wide receivers this year. So it's a soft matchup. I wouldn't be surprised to see Kevin O'Connell come up with a game plan that features Jordan Addison early and maybe a lot more of Jay Jetta's late. That to me would seem feasible, possible. And again, it's a little bit of the it's like squeaky wheel adjacent, because it's not like it's not totally clear if he was complaining or not, but I don't know. I wouldn't be surprised. He's gone too many games now where he's just not been a featured player in this offense. We're going into week number 9. Maybe KOC says, all right, listen, man, it's time to get this guy involved here. It's time to get this guy activated. I wouldn't be surprised. All right, deep sleeper for you. Jalen Coker taking on the Saints. The Saints have allowed the 4th most yards to the slot and also have been prone to big plays. 8.92 yards per attempt allowed. All right, let me say that again. Nearly 9 yards per attempt. That is what the Saints are allowing. That ranks as the 7th worst in the NFL. Now, we just saw Ladd McConkey crush this team out of the slot last week. And again, if you need a refresher on Jalen Coker, I feel like I've been talking about, I don't know why, I've just been talking about Jalen Coker a lot. But anyways, 6'1", 210 pounds. He's a rookie from Holy Cross. And he did produce eyebrow-raising reception perception numbers as well. Per our guy, wide receiver guru, the best in the game in terms of wide receiver evaluation. Coker posted a 69.6% success rate versus man and a very impressive 81.1% success rate versus zone in a very small sample size. But it's a small sample size, but it's there. All right, so we're going with that right there. And again, we want these slot guys to be over 80% against zone. And man, I tell you what, if they're over 70% versus man, even better. He's not quite there yet, 69.6, but very, very close. Elijah Moore versus the Chargers is a very interesting one. Because if you go by just the straight numbers, it's a little dicey, right? The Chargers have been extremely tough defensively. Man, they have been so tough to crack, no question. They've allowed the 8th fewest fantasy points per game to the slot. And so now you're saying to yourself, well, why are you recommending Elijah Moore here? How is he on your sleeper list? Okay, I will say this, though. I wonder if it's mostly due to a volume issue. Let me explain. Teams have thrown the 2nd fewest slot pass attempts against the Chargers this year. The 2nd fewest slot pass attempts against the Chargers. When opposing teams have tested the inside, it's gone pretty well. The Chargers rank dead last in yards per pass attempt allowed. 73.5% completion rate when targeting inside wide receivers. That ranks as third worst. So again, to me, this is largely a volume issue when we're talking about slot receivers going up against the Chargers. I think Elijah Moore, again, if it's just a volume issue, Moore, who is this team's primary slot receiver, does have a chance to break through, considering he basically, again, he led the Browns in targets last week with 12. He saw 12 targets last week, right? So to me, I feel as if Elijah Moore, who in my humble opinion is the best route runner on this team, he's going to get target share. He's going to get target share. So that to me is a very interesting play. I think Elijah Moore is a playable asset. I came on yesterday's podcast and I said, I don't like Jameis, and I still hold true to that. But Elijah Moore, I think, could be, their best playmaker and somebody who sees a decent amount of volume in this offense. Deep sleeper. Let's go deep sleeper. Parker Washington against Philadelphia. Christian Kirk, as we know, out for the season. Parker Washington is going to step in and fill that slot receiver role for the Jacksonville Jaguars. Now, again, if you listen to my waiver wire pod, I had some mixed. I was a little mixed on Parker Washington. We certainly saw a ceiling, right? His first game out last year, after we had not seen him at all throughout the entire year, 6 catches, 60 yards, and a touchdown. He gave you 18 PPR points, which is great. After that, though, it wasn't great. It was not great. Now, that being said, Philadelphia is much softer in the slot than they are out wide. I got to be honest with you, I am very worried about Brian Thomas Jr. in this ball game. It's not a good matchup. Quinyon Mitchell's a dog, man. This dude can play. Anyways, the Eagles have given up the 10th most fantasy points per game to the slot. They've given up the 10th fewest fantasy points per game to outside wide receivers. If anything, this is an indication that this is going to be a pass funnel to the inside. And if that's the case, Parker Washington should be in a position to see a lot of targets against Philadelphia. We'll see if that holds true. Deep sleeper, Alec Pierce against I keep calling him Minneapolis. I don't know what is going against Minnesota. You guys, I don't know. I keep calling them Minneapolis, and I don't know what is going on in my brain, bro. I don't know what it is. Anyways, I like Alec Pierce against Minnesota. Not only have the Vikings given up the second most fantasy points per game to outside wide receivers, it is how they have been beat by outside wide receivers, and that is routinely on deep passes. They have allowed the Minnesota Vikings, not the Minneapolis Vikings, the Minnesota Vikings, they have allowed the third most receptions and the third most touchdowns per game on passes of 20-plus yards downfield. They're getting burned deep, guys. Well, shoot, Alec Pierce is their deep play guy, right? So we'll see if he can connect on one. I think he might. By the way, with Michael Pittman banged up, I do wonder if it's fair to wonder if Alec Pierce sees a couple more targets in this game as well. I think he might. I think the targets might be there. I think his targets might inch up to anywhere between, 4 to 6. And he's going to get a couple deep shots. They're 50-50 balls. It's a coin flip. Let's see if the coin flip lands in favor of us this week. All right, final deep sleeper here for you. And it is Mason, just the Tipton. Take out Carolina. Mason, just the Tipton against Carolina. Chris Olave is back. When Chris Olave came back last week, it wasn't Bub Means, but no, it was Mason, just the Tipton, alongside Chris Olave here. He was the clear-cut number 2 receiver for the Saints. He was second on the team in routes run last week, and the matchup, it's Carolina. You already know it's pristine. Okay, the Panthers have allowed the 4th most fantasy points per game to outside receivers, and Tipton plays about 80% of his snaps as an outside receiver opposite of Chris Olave. So this is a great matchup, and he's gotten plenty of usage, ran plenty of routes, potentially Derek Carr coming back. Even if Derek Carr doesn't come back, I think their backups are functional in their own way, if that makes any sense. Rattler's got a bigger arm, but at least he's got an arm. You know what I'm saying? Hayner, he's a little bit more stable. I think he can keep the offense moving. So they've got pluses and minuses, both of them. You know what I mean? But overall, I do like Mason Tipton as a potential deep sleeper against Carolina. All right, I talked about a tight end that I really liked. Well, I'm going to stay on this team, okay, because I really like Taysom Hill against the aforementioned Carolina Panthers. Okay, the Panthers, their defense stinks. We know this. That's not a surprise, okay? They allow the second most fantasy points per game to tight end. I mean, shoot, you can say that about damn near any position group. Running backs are the worst, you know. Wide receivers, they're the worst. Slot receivers are the worst. They're just bad, man. It's tough, right? Anyways, the Panthers' defense is obviously quite generous to the tight end position. And as we did note earlier, right, the Panthers do give up the most fantasy points per game to running backs. So whether it's catching or running, Taysom's got a great matchup. He's got a great matchup. Now, I don't know how he is going to do this, but I just feel it in my bones that they are going to work up a play to get Taysom Hill into the end zone. I don't know what it is, but I am feeling it with Taysom Hill this week against Carolina. Now, when you take a look at the offensive system right now, or the offensive makeup, I mean, there are so many dudes who are injured. Derek Carr's banged up. Alvin Kamara reportedly is working through a broken hand. I mean, Chris Olave is in and out of the lineup with concussions, right? So, and shoot, I mean, even Taysom Hill himself is coming back from an injury. So I get it. But just because of that, I think they have to get a little bit more creative. And shoot, when you get more creative, who are you going to go to? You're going to Taysom Hill. Clint Kubiak's going to Taysom Hill. He's going to find a way to get Taysom Hill in a position to score. By the way, did I mention, when we're talking about scoring, did I mention that the Carolina Panthers are dead last in touchdowns allowed to tight end? I don't know. I'm feeling it this week with Taysom Hill if he's available on the waiver wire, and you have like Colby Parkinson or something, right? Some blah tight end. Chase the upside with Taysom. Why not? Let's do it. Let's make it work. All right, last one is Noah Fant versus the LA Rams. I say this with a huge asterisk because I just saw that Noah Fant is dealing with a little bit of an injury here. So obviously we're going to keep an eye on that. Okay, picking up a late week injury, not that great, not that enticing. Anyways, but the matchup is great. The Rams have allowed the third most fantasy points per game to the tight end position. And starting tight ends, by the way, have scored 11 plus PPR points in 3 straight games against LA, including last week when Minnesota got the lightly used Josh Oliver into the end zone. Brock Bowers, Tucker Kraft. Are you kidding me? These guys stung the LA Rams for 19 and 25 PPR points, respectively. So I really like Noah Fant. Now, if it is not Noah Fant, if Noah Fant is not a go in this ball game, I'll be really, really intrigued. And this is the deepest of deep sleepers here. But I'll be very intrigued by A.J. Barner. And you say, who in the hell is A.J. Barner, bro? A rookie tight end, though, and he's got some traits, man. This guy can play. I like A.J. Barner a lot. His development and stats right now are being blocked by Noah Fant. But if Fant is not there, I like A.J. Barner a lot, man. So, again, just a name to keep in mind. If you're playing DFS, A.J. Barner is going to be bottom of the barrel free. He'll be the cheapest guy on the board if Noah Fant is not going to be a go. So just Just FYI. By the way, we're going to keep an eye on player props right there too. All right, so there you go. That's the show. Those are your sleepers at the wide receiver and tight end positions. When I chat with you guys tomorrow, we'll talk about some of my favorite matchups on the board. And, of course, we'll go through injuries as well. All right, I got to go. But remember, it's never too late to chase your dreams. Peace.